Hi, Assassins. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Cami.
Welcome to Bookish Realms.
We're just two girls who can't stop talking about fantasy books.
Welcome to our deep dives of Heir of Fire. This episode covers chapters 63 through 68 of Heir of Fire, which is the end. Like in past episodes, chapter summaries and character discussion are spoiler-free, but the rest of the pod does include spoilers for all of Throne of Glass. This podcast is for mature audiences only. Cami, take it away, girl.
Let's get into some chapter summaries. As a reminder, this is a non-spoiler section where we summarize the chapters we'll cover in this episode. So if you haven't read the entire series, but you have read chapters 63 through 68 of Heir of Fire, you can listen to this section. Chapter 63. Things are getting tense. The king calls Aedion, Chaol, Dorian, and Sorsha to his chambers. You just know something bad is about to go down when he gathers all of them like that. Chapter 64. And yep, it's worse than we thought. The king drops a bomb. Sorsha has been spying for the rebels. Before anyone can even process what's happening, he has her executed right there. Aedion is thrown into prison and chaos breaks loose. Chapter 65. Dorian snaps, uses his magic to protect Chaol and help him escape. But his father overpowers him, beats him down, and then puts the Wordstone collar on him. Dorian is no longer himself, and it's heartbreaking. Chapter 66. Meanwhile, the witches are on the move. They're being sent to Morath to serve under Duke Parrington. Something dark and twisted is brewing over there. Chapter 67. Chaol makes his choice. He finally breaks ties with the king. No more loyalty, no more excuses. He goes underground, ready to fight back. It's the beginning of a rebellion, and Chaol is finally all in. Chapter 68. And in Wendlin, Celaena is no longer Celaena. She's Aelin. She's done training, done hiding. She's heading back to Otterland with a mission. Free magic, destroy the Valg, and claim her birthright. Let's fucking go, Queen of Shadows. Okay, I'm gonna calm down.
Welcome to character discussion. Here we'll do a quick recap of the characters from this set of chapters and do a deeper dive into the main characters from this section. This will, as always, be spoiler-free. For the quick recap for this set of chapters, we will discuss Sorsha. Sorsha Girl has been working with Ren, who is a rebel, and the king finds out about it, and that means off with her head, literally. But basically, the king kills her for being a rebel, and I'm just so sorry, girl. I'm so sorry. Next up, we have the main characters. For the main characters, we will discuss all the big ones. So Aelin, Rowan, Dorian, Chaol, Manon, and Aedion. For this episode, this section will be a little longer than usual, as we will discuss the journey that these characters have been on throughout this book. But I promise it will still remain spoiler-free, of course. First up, we have Celaena. In Heir of Fire, Celaena Sardathian's journey is all about self-discovery and coming to terms with her inner power. At the start, she is in Wendlin, trying to figure out how to master her fire magic while grappling with the grief and trauma of her past. She is training under Rowan, a fierce Fae warrior who helps her confront her pain and pushes her to her limits. But the journey isn't just physical. Celaena is battling her own guilt, especially over her failures in the past, like the loss of Sam and Nehemia. During her training, she faces major emotional and magical breakthroughs, learning to control the fire inside her instead of letting it consume her. There's also a critical moment when she finally gets free from her self-destructive grief and starts to embrace her true identity, not just as an assassin, but as someone who can lead and fight for a cause. Towards the end of the book, Rowan swears a blood oath to Celaena, cementing their bond as Karanam and setting her on a new path towards reclaiming her kingdom. This book really shows her growth from a broken, angry person to a more self-aware, powerful force, and it's all about accepting both the beauty and destruction of her power. She is no longer running away from her past, but using it to fuel her future. Aelin's golden line from this set of chapters is, quote, I will call in every favor, every debt owed to Celaena Sardathian, to my parents, to my bloodline, and then she looked towards the sea, towards home, and then I'm going to rattle the stars. Next up, we have Rowan. In Heir of Fire, Rowan Whitethorn really steps up as Celaena's mentor. When we first meet him, he's pretty cold and distant. His main focus is getting Celaena to control her fire magic, and he's not here for any distractions. He's also dealing with a lot of pain from his past, especially the loss of his mate Lyria. So he's not exactly the warmest guy around. But as he trains Celaena, we start to see him open up a bit. They form a really strong bond, and Rowan begins to realize just how much potential Celaena has. The guy's got his own internal battle going on, though, because he's still bound by this blood oath to Maeve, who is the Fae Queen, and that oath basically has him stuck in servitude. But that doesn't last for too long, because Rowan's blood oath to Maeve gets broken, and it's a huge deal because Fae blood oaths are basically unbreakable, and doing it honorably is practically unheard of. But Rowan does it, and while it's a huge emotional blow to him, it's also a freeing moment. By the end of the book, Rowan breaks free from Maeve and swears a blood oath to Celaena. That's his way of saying, quote, to whatever end. His character goes from being stuck in his past and duty to fighting for something he truly believes in, and that something or someone is Celaena. Rowan's golden line from this set of chapters is, quote, "We're stronger together than apart." Next up, we have Dorian. Dorian Haviliard has been through a lot. We see him dealing with the aftermath of the events in Crown of Midnight. He's still struggling with the fallout of his relationship with Selena, and his heart is clearly torn between his duty to his father, who is the king of Adarlan, and this feeling of wanting to be his own man. But there is that small issue that Dorian has magic, which is a huge deal. His powers are still new and pretty unpredictable, so he's trying to keep that on the down low, especially with his father being the power-hungry, controlling man that he is, who also hates magic. Thankfully, Sorsha came up with a tonic that helps stifle his magic. The real turning point for Dorian is when he realized how much control his father has over his life, and how little room he has to actually live for himself. He starts to come into his own, and while he's still stuck in the court politics, we see him become more self-aware, realizing he needs to make his own decisions and fight for what's right. As we get deeper into the story, you can see him trying to take a stand against his father's tyranny, which will ultimately set the stage for some really important decisions in the later books. At the end of Heir of Fire, Dorian is still dealing with his inner conflict, but there's definitely a shift. He's starting to make choices for himself and slowly realizing that he's got a lot more power than he thought, especially when it comes to controlling his magic. And it was all going well for him until his father put that collar on his neck. So we will see what's next for our sweet crown prince. Dorian's golden line from this set of chapters is, quote, "When you come back," the prince said, "burn this place to the ground." Next up, we have Chaol. In Heir of Fire, Chaol Westfall is really struggling. He's caught between his loyalty to the crown and his growing realization that things in Adarlan aren't as black and white as he once thought. His loyalty to the king of Adarlan is tested, especially after everything that's gone down with Selena, and the knowledge of the king's cruelty. Chaol is still in love with Selena, but he's trying to push those feelings down because, well, she's not the person he thought she was. She's the lost queen of Terrasen and also Fae, and it's hard for him to come to terms with that. He is also stuck between supporting Dorian, who's becoming his own person and growing into his magic, and sticking to his sense of duty. Chaol's loyalty to Dorian is tested as well, as he's more and more conflicted about who he should be supporting. He's even having some serious moments of self-doubt, questioning whether he's doing the right thing or if he's too blinded by his past loyalty. By the end of the book, Chaol is starting to realize that he has to start making his own choices, even if it means going against everything he's known. It's a messy, painful journey for him, but he's beginning to see that he needs to choose his own path if he wants to make any real change. And we see him stand up to the king of Adarlan and officially join the rebels. Chaol's golden line from this set of chapters is, quote, "And it would not be Selena Sardathian who returned to this continent. It would take time, he knew, for it to stop hurting, to let go, but the pain wouldn't last forever." Next up, we have Manan. In Heir of Fire, Manan is really put through it, but also showing some serious signs of growth. She is still tough as hell, the leader of the 13, and doing her best to be ruthless like her grandmother expects her to be. But things start to change. During the War Games, she's forced to make a huge choice when Petra's wyvern, Keely, is attacked. Even though it goes against everything she's been taught, Manan chooses to save Petra and her wyvern, which is a huge step for her. After winning the War Games and becoming wing leader, Manan faces the harsh reality of her grandmother's control when she's ordered to kill a Kraken witch. It's a moment that really hits her hard, and she struggles with the feelings of regret for not even knowing the witch's name. This shows that Manan is starting to confront her emotions and not just act on the cold, hard training she's been given her whole life. She's evolving, questioning her loyalty to her grandmother and realizing that maybe there is more to life than just following orders and being ruthless. Throughout the book, we see Manan's emotional armor cracking little by little. She's still tough and strong, but she's learning to feel and to understand the weight of her actions, which makes her character so much more complex. Manan doesn't have a long POV in this set of chapters, so her golden line is from the book as a whole, and it is, quote, "We are the 13, from now until the darkness claims us." Next up, we have Adian. In Heir of Fire, Adian has one focus and one focus only, Aelin/Selena, and her return to the throne of Terrasen. He's been fighting in the trenches for years, battling to free his people, and he's driven by the hope that one day there will be peace. But for now, it's all about the fight. Throughout this book, Adian's loyalty to Aelin is at the forefront, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to help her regain her kingdom. When Ren asks him if he wants to be king, Adian makes it clear he's not interested in the crown. His only goal is to see Aelin alive and fighting, and if the gods give him more time, he'll be thankful. This just shows how deeply devoted he is to her cause and his people. Even though Adian's been through endless pain and loss, his hope for a better future keeps him going. He's not just a leader by title, he's earned the respect of those around him through his actions, his grit, and his unwavering belief in Aelin's destiny. Adian's golden line from this set of chapters is, quote, "All you monsters can burn in hell because my queen is coming and she will spike you to the walls of your goddamn castle." I love him. But that is all for character discussion. Sorry that was so long. There's just so many important characters in this book.
Let's explore this world. Here we cover the main world-building elements that come up in chapters 63 through 68. We'll revisit these places and world-building elements in other episodes. For today, this section is not spoiler-free, so if you haven't finished the entire series, please do not continue. But please come back when you have. In this set of chapters, the King of Otterland uses a Wordstone collar to force a Valak possession on Dorian. So let's talk about Wordstone and the rings and collars made from it. Wordstone is a smooth obsidian-like material from another realm. It acts as a powerful conduit for magic and can serve as a vessel for Valak demons. Those with magic in their blood often experience discomfort around it, including headaches or pressure. The most common forms of Wordstone appear as rings and collars. These objects were created by Erewhon to house the Valak. When worn, these items allow the demon to take control of the wearer's body. The form of the Wordstone determines the rank of the Valak it can hold. Wordstone rings are small and typically used to contain lesser Valak soldiers. Removing a Wordstone ring is often enough to weaken the demon and force it out. Wordstone collars, however, are far more dangerous. These black torques are designed to hold Valak princes. When a collar is placed on a host, the prince can fully inhabit their body, suppressing their will while leaving them aware of everything happening.
This is our analysis and foreshadowing section, which is not spoiler-free. We will break down parts of the text that tie into or foreshadow future events in the series. If you have not read all of Throne of Glass, please do not continue, because I don't want to hear you talking crazy when I'm telling you now. Don't continue, okay? Okay, glad we got that settled. Anyways, let's start with a recap. Previously on Heir of Fire, Rowan and Selena finally made it to Maeve and Doranelle, and their whole encounter was intense. Maeve dropped some big bombshells about the word keys and the Valak, and Selena realized the stakes were way higher than she initially thought. Turns out, Maeve has been secretly hunting the word keys for centuries just to grab more power. Then, using Athrel's ring, Selena forced Maeve to free Rowan from his blood oath, and then Rowan immediately swore the blood oath to Selena. Rowan also gave her a tattoo to honor everyone she has lost. Meanwhile, over in the Fairying Gap, the war games got a little bloody. Iskra attacked Petra and her wyvern mid-air, but Manon chose mercy and saved them, directly disobeying her bitch-ass grandmother. That one choice changes everything. The Blackbeaks won and Manon became wing leader, but we all know something deeper was starting to shift in her. We love it.
And for the first time in our entire Heir of Fire coverage, we're actually not starting with Selena and Rowan. Let's start with the witches. We get one witch POV to end Heir of Fire, but it does set us up for the events of Queen of Shadows. Manon learns from her grandmother that she and half the Iron Teeth hosts are being sent to Morath to serve Duke Parrington. The other half will stay behind under Istra's command to monitor the North. Manon tries to ask her questions carefully, knowing any wrong move could be dangerous because her grandmother's a bitch. Quote, Manon had gotten the message. Next time, it would be one of the 13 on her knees. Mother Blackbeak saw the 13's loyalty and sees it as a threat, and she's willing to hurt or kill them to keep Manon under control. The threat is clear. The more Manon questions or disobeys, the more the 13 will be used as leverage. And we see exactly that later on.
Yeah, literally fuck Mother Blackbeak. Like, deadass fuck her.
Literally. I feel like we've said that a million times, but I feel like she has no redemption.
No.
She has no redemption. She's just a bitch.
The next day, under the cover of darkness, Manon leads the Iron Teeth south towards Morath. The 13 stay close, and despite not knowing exactly what awaits them in Morath, they're enjoying this little journey. Quote, Sorrel was stone-faced, monitoring the skies around them, but Astrid was smiling faintly. It was not a wild grin or one that promised death, but a calm smile. To be aloft and skimming the clouds, where every Blackbeak belonged, where Manon belonged. Astrid caught her stare and smiled wider, as if there wasn't a host of witches flying behind them, and Morath lying ahead. Her cousin turned her face into the wind, breathing it in, exultant. Despite it all, the 13 are in the skies again, and this moment shows us that they do feel emotions, even if they have been taught to hide them or made to hide them. Yes, Sorrel stays serious, but Astrid smiles, showing her joy at flying as a group again. Flying again means something so deep to them. When Aurelia lost the magic, the witches were also so deeply impacted, and the wyvern are giving them like a feeling. Yeah, they're giving them feelings. They're letting them know that they can again be in the fucking skies and to reclaim something that like feels so central to like what being a witch is. Like I feel like anytime I hear about witches in something, it's always them in the sky on a broom. And they haven't been able to do that. And honestly, Astern's joy is especially powerful because, as we know, her backstory is fucking tragic, and yet she still finds beauty in the sky and in life. Manon notices Astern's reaction, and throughout this book and the series, she often watches her second closely, seeing how Astern isn't afraid to show her feelings. But Manon doesn't let herself feel anything. She's focused on one task at hand, fighting in the King's War and reclaiming the Witch Kingdom. And that is it for the witches in Heir of Fire. Next time we'll see them, they will be in Morath.
And now to Rifthold, where we're all about to be traumatized. Aedion is still quietly celebrating Aelin's return, but Kale is worried about how dangerous the entire situation has become and is really trying to prepare for what it will be like when Celaena returns. Quote, yes, Aelin would come home, but not to Kale. She would come home to Terrasen, to Aedion and Ren and the court that was regathering in her name. She would come home to war and bloodshed and responsibility. Part of him still could not fathom what she'd done to Narok, the battle cry she'd issued from across the sea. He could not accept that part of her, so bloodthirsty and unyielding. Even as Celaena, it had been hard to swallow at times, and he had tried to look past it. But as Aelin, he'd known since the moment he figured out who she was that while Celaena would always pick him, Aelin would not. And it would not be Celaena Sardathian who returned to this continent. It would take time, he knew, for it to stop hurting, to let go. But the pain wouldn't last forever. Yes. It is honesty hour from Kale. He's accepted that Aelin is coming home, but it's not for him. Aelin belongs to Terrasen, not to their old life together. And we've seen him come to terms with this, okay? Kale can accept that Aelin is no longer the girl he fell in love with. Aelin is coming home with the weight of war, duty, and power on her shoulders. And Kale openly admits that he struggles with accepting her strength and ruthlessness, even though he knows that it's part of who she is. Ultimately, he knows that while Celaena might have always picked him, which is what she said to him on the docks as he sent her off to Wendlin, Aelin will not, and honestly, she cannot. She's got so much other shit. Kale is starting to let go, even though it hurts. He's got a lot of feelings, and we see them in Queen of Shadows. This entire moment is a great reminder that even in times of war, people are people, and we have feelings. Kale is allowed to be concerned about the king and the war, and also be heartbroken over Aelin, because who would not be? As Aedion and Kale prepare for Kale's departure, Aedion offers to pass a message to Aelin, but Kale doesn't have the right words to share with her. He, does not know what to say. So he tells Aedion to lie, to pretend everything is fine, because he knows it'll make her return easier.
And then we get Sorsha's POV, which, not for too much longer. But anyways, she lies awake beside Dorian, full of love and fear. Sorsha knows the world is changing and that chaos is coming if Aelin and Magic are both returning. And in a heartbreaking moment, we see that despite it all, Sorsha is grateful. Quote, yet no matter what happened tomorrow or next week or next year, she was grateful. Grateful to the gods, to fate, to herself for being brave enough to kiss him that night. Grateful for this little bit of time she's been given with him. I'm sorry. This is so fucked. This gives me so many feelings, especially knowing how Sorsha's life is about to be abruptly ended. Literally abruptly ended. But I am just so glad for her that she got to experience her time with Dorian. And it's just unfortunate because she deserved so much more and she deserved better. She deserved a little bit longer. And she deserved to fight and win and see Aelin restored to her throne and to see Dorian become king. Because ultimately, I feel like after everything that happens, this was the point that set Dorian into Shadow Dorian, Shadow Daddy that we get later on. So yeah, so sick. Sarah, you are sick for that. But despite loving Dorian, Sorsha doubts her ability to be queen, and she knows that one day she will have to let Dorian go.
Kale and Aedion continue secretly planning an escape for Dorian and Sorsha, using Kale's departure to Aniel as cover. But the king summons them before it can happen. Dorian rushes to get Sorsha out, but they're caught by guards and forced to the king's chambers, where everything falls apart so fast. The king publicly accuses them of betrayal, separates Dorian from Sorsha, and forces her to kneel with a sword to her neck. The king is using her as leverage. Kale and Aedion silently prepare to fight, but Kale knows that he can't risk it while Sorsha is in danger. She's got a blade to her neck. Dorian tries to protect her by offering to cooperate, but it seems like an impossible situation. And in that moment, Kale looks at Aedion. Quote, Aedion, who had survived for so long without hope, holding together his kingdom as best he could, who would never see the queen he so fiercely loved. He deserved to meet her, and she deserved to have him serve in her court. I just can't imagine being Aedion in this moment. I just can't imagine facing the king and realizing that the one thing he wanted is about to be taken from him again by the king. Kale knows that they probably will not make it out of this encounter alive, and that is especially heartbreaking for Aedion, who literally just learned, like, in less than a few weeks, that Aelin is alive. Aedion has secretly carried and protected Terrasen alone, just doing what he could and rebelling in his own ways. Aedion had no hope and still tried because his love and loyalty run so deep. After everything Aedion sacrificed, Kale believes Aedion deserved to meet Aelin, but the reality of it is that he might not get that chance.
I'm sorry. This whole 5 chapters is too much. It's too much. And so Kale shifts his focus to protecting Aedion, but it's too late. Aedion starts speaking. Aedion sacrifices himself by pretending to be the traitor, taking all the blame to protect Kale, Dorian, and their plans. Kale watches as Aedion takes the fall. He makes eye contact with Aedion, and so much passes between them in that moment. Quote, because for a flicker, as those turquoise eyes met with his, there was none of that rage or triumph, only a message to the queen that Aedion would never see. And there were no words to convey it, the love and the hope and the pride, the sorrow at not knowing her as the woman she had become, the gift Aedion thought he was giving her in sparing Kale's life. I'm sorry. Kale can see the truth behind Aedion's actions. There is no rage from Aedion. Aedion's last hope is to send a message to Aelin because he believes he won't get to reunite with her. Aedion won't get to see the woman and queen that she becomes ultimately. And Aedion sees his sacrifice as a gift to her because he's protecting Kale so Aelin can have an ally and a friend by her side. Aedion sees Kale's life as more valuable to Aelin than his. Aedion is truly willing to give up everything for Aelin, including his life. Which, thank God, he got to see her again at some point, because if he never would have saw her, I would have actually crashed out. I would not have been
100%.
okay. I would not have been okay.
So upset.
I don't think I could have continued. I think I would have
I was going to say I might have DNF'd. I
think I would have actually not been able to continue. I would have been mentally unwell. But the king announces Aedion's public execution and reveals that it was all a trap to lure Aelin to Rifthold, knowing that she'll try to rescue her cousin. Which we know she ends up doing, but still, fuck the king for that. Fuck Earl, not Erwin. We don't know the name of the Valg that's inside the king, but fuck the Valg king that's inside of him or whatever.
No, the Valg is nameless.
Yeah, nameless. Nameless is the prize.
And then the king turns to Sorsha. He reveals that she's a rebel spy and they've found the letters she's been writing to Ren because she threw one of them out in the trash. We pointed that exact moment out in our previous episodes. Dorian still tries to protect her, though. Sorsha is terrified, but she still puts on a brave front. She faces the king and lifts her head. Sorsha's last words are, quote, you destroyed everything that I had, and you deserve everything that's to come, she said. Then she looked at Dorian, whose eyes were indeed wide, his face bone white. I was not supposed to love you, but I did. I do. And there is so much I wish we could have done together, seen together. Bruh. Okay. I can't with that. These are her last words. We've mentioned this before, but Sorsha's story and her role in this book really hit so much harder on a reread because Sorsha's story is the story of so many people who have suffered under the King of Adarlan's rule. She lost her parents, her village, and despite all that loss and grief, Sorsha still chose to focus on hope, on healing. Even in her last moments, Sorsha takes a stand. Her last words to the king are bold and defiant. She wants him to know that he will face justice one day. But then when she turns to Dorian, her words are raw and heartbreaking. She wasn't supposed to love him, but she did anyway. In her last moments, Sorsha chooses love and truth. She doesn't choose fear. Her goodbye is quiet, but powerful. And Sorsha, Girl, you are a reminder that even the softest, quietest people are brave.
And Dorian falls to his knees and begs his father to spare Sorsha, offering anything in return. But the king says no, and before anyone can react, he has Sorsha beheaded in front of them. Dorian's reaction here is pure agony. His scream is unlike anything that Kale has ever heard, full of grief and rage as he watches the woman he loved be brutally executed before his eyes. Quote, and then Dorian, still screaming, was scrambling through the blood toward her head, as if he could piece her together. I'm gonna fucking throw up. I'm gonna actually throw up because this shit breaks my heart. Dorian is simply in shock and in denial, and his actions here feel so childlike and raw, and it's really heartbreaking because he's trying to undo what happened and to bring Sorsha back, but the reality is like she's not coming back, and it just makes me so sad. Like picturing that in my head, and like this powerful man that is like supposed to be the king at some point is like trying to put the love of his life's head back on her lifeless body, like as he's crawling through her blood.
And then shit continues to hit the fan. Kale is horrified as Dorian screams in Sorsha's blood, but then he draws his sword. The king mocks him, but Kale refuses to back down. He tells the king, quote, I will not go to Aniel, and I will not serve you a moment longer. There is one true king in this room. There always has been, and he is not sitting on that throne. Let's fucking go, Kale. I love that he went from like, I serve the king to absolutely taking the first opportunity he can to read the king to filth. But this is the moment where Kale fully breaks from his role as the obedient captain of the guard. We've been building up to it, but Kale finally says it out loud as he faces off against the king. Kale's loyalty was never to Otterland or to the king. Kale's loyalty has always, always, always been to Dorian. Kale is choosing a side, and it is Dorian. And this in itself is an act of rebellion and an act of love. He wants it to be clear where his loyalty lies. And ultimately, we'll get more into it, but like this is the true shift in Kale's identity. It's no longer tied to his role or to Otterland. Kale is instead aligning himself to what he believes is right. And also being like, fuck you, bro. You are not a good king.
Kale doesn't stop there, though. He basically tells the king, you're fucked, buddy. Cool. But Kale went on. There's a queen in the north, and she has already beaten you once. She will beat you again and again, because what she represents and what your son represents is what you fear most. Hope. You cannot steal it, no matter how many you rip from their homes and enslave. You cannot break it, no matter how many you murder. Kale is literally calling out the king's fears. It's not armies. The king fears hope. He lists the king's crimes, enslavement, murder, and fear tactics. But he says none of it can kill hope, because he is right. And this is both a threat and a fucking promise. Aelin defeated the king's armies in Wendelin, and she will do it again, because she represents the thing, again, that the king fears most, which is hope. And so does Dorian. And no matter what the king takes away, he cannot fucking break hope. Because if there is a will, there is a way, baby.
The king orders Kale's death, but before the crossbow bolt can hit him, Dorian unleashes his magic, freezing the arrow and the entire room. Dorian tells Kale to run and to come back and burn the castle to the ground. Kale realizes that this was another trap meant to reveal Dorian's magic and that Dorian sacrificed himself so Kale could escape and find Aelin. They all just They all just sacrifice themselves for each other. Kale and Dorian share one last moment before Kale has to run. Quote, he looked at his friend, perhaps for the last time, and said what he had always known from the moment they'd met when he'd understood that the prince was his brother in soul. I love you. Dorian merely nodded, eyes still blazing, and lifted his hands again toward his father. Brother, friend, king. Fuck. Fuck. I can't. Their relationship is so beautiful. But the fact that Kale knows that this might be the last time he sees Dorian fucking kills me. It also, I think, really puts in perspective Kale's entire attitude problem in Queen of Shadows. Kale chooses to speak from the heart. He tells Dorian he loves him. We've said this before, but their bond goes so deep. It is not just friendship, it's brotherhood. And because he thinks this is their last moments, Cale wants to make sure that Dorian knows that he's loved. Dorian nods, accepting and returning that love. Their bond has been tense this entire book. They have not been getting along, but none of that matters here. And Cale's final thoughts before he walks away from Dorian are brother, friend, king. To Cale, Dorian has become all three, but now they have to part ways. Cale escapes through the chaos thanks to Dorian's magic and sacrifice as the castle shakes from Dorian and the king's power.
I'm sorry, I needed a moment because why is this set of chapters so emotional?
Brother, friend, king? Are you fucking kidding me? I love you. Oh my God, bruh. I can't.
I can't do this. I simply can't do this.
His brother and soul?
Yeah, like, Cale. I'm sorry. I know that at the beginning of this podcast, I was such a Cale hater. But, like, I am, like, starting to like him. Like, I never hated Cale, okay? I just, like, didn't agree with him in Queen of Shadows. But now when you reread it again, it makes sense. Like, it literally makes sense. It makes sense. It makes so much fucking sense.
Yeah. And I think also it's easy to hate Cale because he, like, represents us. Like, he is imperfect because he's human. And, like, I know I've said that, like, so many times, but, like, I think he's easier to hate because he's, like, just having a normal human reaction. Like, he doesn't have magic. He doesn't have anything.
Yeah. He's not a shadow daddy. So, like, he can't just, like, I don't know.
Yeah. Dorian, like, whipped out the raw magic. Aylin's fucking Aylin. Like,
yeah.
And he's just like, what? Where's
Cale.
my part?
Yeah.
He's just Cale. He's just a dude.
He's just a guy. He's just a chill guy. But anyways, we briefly return to Adian's POV. He's willingly accepted his capture, but he can't help but think about Aylin. Quote, he did not bother with prayers for himself or for the captain. The gods had not helped him these past 10 years, and they would not save him now. He did not mind dying, though he still wished he had gotten a chance to see her. Just once. Adian doesn't mind dying, but his one regret is never seeing Aylin, the cousin and the queen he's waited for his entire life. It also so interesting that Adian doesn't pray because he's lost faith in the gods, that they've never really helped him before. But why would they start now? Because why would they start now at this point? It's really interesting in the context of this entire series, since the gods really don't give a shit about anything except for Aylin forging the lock and sending them back home.
Back in Dorian's POV, he's still facing off against his father. The king is using his dark magic to attack, and Dorian is trying to hold on to give Cale more time because, honestly, that's all that Dorian's got left now. Quote, but when the arrow had fired at Cale, that was the death he could not endure. Cale had drawn his line, and Dorian was on his side of it. Cale had called him his king. So revealing his power to his father did not frighten him. No, to save his friend, dying did not scare him one bit. Stop. I can't. Dorian's line in the sand was Cale's death. He could not let that happen. And we see that again in Queen of Shadows. Dorian isn't afraid to reveal his magic in this moment because he's accepted that protecting the people he loves is worth any cost. He is a selfless king. We've said that so many times. And Dorian knows that Cale is on his side. Cale called Dorian his king. Both Dorian and Cale choose each other over fear, power, or survival. Dorian is willing to die to give Cale a chance to live, just as Cale would have died for him. Again, like, their bond, it's really special. It really goes beyond friendship. And now that they're fighting together, even if they're separated, they are fighting for Aylin, for justice, for the future. Dorian, completely drained, reaches for Sorsha one last time before his father forces the Wordstone collar onto him, letting a Valak prince possess Dorian. He fights with everything he has left, fearing what the collar will do to him, but it's not enough. The last shot we get of Dorian, the darkness is sweeping in.
Meanwhile, Cale escapes through the tunnels with Fleetfoot. He takes note of every blast of magic he feels because it means Dorian is still fighting. Still, Cale carries hope for Aylin, for Dorian, for the better world they're all fighting for. He enters Elena's tomb and grabs Damaris, gold, and the magic books before escaping. He makes it outside the castle. He doesn't know if Dorian is dead or alive. At the rebel hideout, Kale tells Ren everything. Kale confirms that Ren was Sorsha's contact. Ren and Kale form a pact to free Adian and Dorian and to keep fighting the good fight. The final Rifthold POV is of Kale, though his name is not directly mentioned. As the sun rises over the Avery River, Kale walks alone to a dock. Rifthold still sleeps, unaware of the tragedy and betrayal that unfolded the night before. Kale pulls out his old sword, the one that symbolized duty, order, and loyalty to the crown. Kale has a new sword now, Damaris. This new sword is a symbol of truth, purpose, and a world he hopes to help rebuild. In this solitary moment, Kale tells himself, quote, he would see the world reborn even if it took his last breath, even if he had no name now, no position or title, save Oathbreaker, Traitor, Liar. I'm sorry, but the words Oathbreaker, Traitor, and Liar will continue to echo in his mind. These are the labels that he carries into Tower of Dawn, where he must confront and unpack them in order to begin really healing from that little valve thing that's inside his spine. But Kale dumps his old sword in the river. He's letting go of who he used to be, the captain of the guard, the good soldier. And with Damaris at his side, Kale chooses a new purpose. He's no longer a servant of Otterlin, but of something far greater.
So, before we move on to covering Celaena and Rowan, we want to take a second to eulogize Sorsha and acknowledge everything she brought to the Throne of Glass world. We eulogize every main and sometimes supporting character who passes away. We really pick and choose. If we like you, you're getting a eulogy. If we don't like you, you're not getting one. Okay? So, Sorsha's eulogy. Sorsha was more than a healer in the Glass Castle. She was more than the quiet girl in the corner. She was a survivor, a rebel, and someone who chose kindness in a world that tried to take everything from her. After losing her family in the King's Purge, Sorsha could have given up. Instead, she chose to help others. She learned to use her hands to heal wounds. Where others saw Dorian as a prince, Sorsha saw the man behind the crown. She saw the man who was hurting, hiding, and changing. She stood beside him, not because it was safe, but because it was right. She helped him learn his magic, protected his secret, and believed in who he could become. Sorsha never asked for praise. She never raised her voice. But her strength was quiet and steady, like the work she did each day. Even when she was afraid, she stayed. Even when she was offered a chance to run, she chose love. Her death was brutal, unfair, a cruel move by a cruel king. But it didn't erase her. It didn't silence her. If anything, it made her part of the fire that was coming. Because if Sorsha had lived, we know that she would have fought. She was a healer. She would have stood against the Valg. She would have used her gifts to protect, to resist, to rebuild. So today, we remember her not for how she died, but for how she lived. For her quiet courage, for her gentle strength, and for the love she gave so freely, even when it cost her everything. Thank you, Sorsha, for reminding us that softness is not weakness, and that healing is its own kind of power.
That was really good.
Thank you.
Standing ovation. And now, let's end with Celaena and Rowan because we need a little bit of hope in our life, and they're about to part ways since Aelin is returning to Rifthold. As they walk to the dock, they're having a mini argument. Rowan is concerned about Aelin's plans and her safety, but she insists on returning to Otterlin alone, still pretending to be Celaena. Rowan points out that even being Celaena isn't protection. Celaena didn't complete the king's mission, and they're going to be hunting her down. But she's ready. Celaena sent a letter to warn Eelway, and she's also ready to face Kale. Quote, and as for Kale, well, that was another reason why she was here, on this dock, about to get onto this ship. She had awoken this morning and slipped the amethyst ring off her finger. It had felt like a blessed release, a final shadow lifted from her heart. But there were still words left unsaid between them, and she needed to make sure he was safe, and would remain that way. Celaena lets go of this amethyst ring and ultimately is letting go of Kale in that moment as well too. It feels good to take it off, like a weight lifted off of her shoulders, because Celaena has accepted that that part of her life is honestly over. And in this final stretch of chapters, we see that both Kale and Celaena both have come to terms with the end of their romance, but the loyalty and care between them is still there. Celaena still feels a deep responsibility to protect Kale and knows there are still things that they need to say to each other.
Aelin continues sharing her plans to return to Rifthold alone with Rowan, but he insists that they're stronger together and wants to go with her. And boy, did he take the first chance he could to go and find her. Rowan is worried about her safety, but Aelin knows that she has to go back to be Celaena and finish what she started. She tells Rowan, I am going, Rowan. I will gather the rest of my court, our court, and then we will raise the greatest army the world has ever witnessed. I will call in every favor, every debt owed to Selena Sardathian, to my parents, to my bloodline. And then she looked toward the sea, toward home. And then I am going to rattle the stars. This is the girl we love. This is the girl we love. She is confident. She is clear. She has a purpose. She has a plan. Aelin plans to call in every favor, every small act of kindness that Selena ever made. Please. And that's why The Assassin's Blade should be read third, because this hits different when you just read The Assassin's Blade. And we see how those moments of kindness weren't just compassion. They became the foundation for her legacy as Aelin, for her legacy as a queen. She understands that real power comes from loyalty, connection, and earned respect. And she tells Rowan, I'm going to fucking rattle the stars. Let's fucking go. This is a callback to Elena's words back in Throne of Glass when she accused Selena of fearing her own power. Repeating it and using it in this way shows us how far she's come. Our girl is no longer afraid. She is ready.
Selena tells Rowan she'll send for him soon. He hugs her tightly and tells her he'll go help rebuild Mistward. This prompts Selena to ask him what he prayed to Mala for the morning before they entered Doranel. He tells her he prayed for her survival and strength to face Maeve. Thinking back to that moment, Aelin realizes the warmth she felt during that moment may have been Mala answering. Rowan's second wish was selfish and hopeful, but it came true. He prayed for them to find a way to stay together, and ultimately they will for the rest of their lives. Aelin teases him for praying to the Firebringer, and Rowan responds that Mala must approve of them as a pair. Selena thinks, cool, but she didn't want to know, didn't want to think about the sun goddess and her agenda as she flung herself on Rowan, breathing in his scent, memorizing the feel of him, the first member of her court, the court that would change the world, the court that would rebuild it, together. I'm sorry, but we said this in the last episode, but it does appear that Mala has a soft spot for Rowan and Aelin. We see it in this book and again in King Vavash when she tells Aelin about the map on her back. Mala is supposed to align herself with the agenda of the other gods and goddesses, but the reality is she doesn't. She chooses to help Aelin time and time again. It is also so sweet that Aelin breathes in Rowan's scent to calm herself and memorize how he feels. Aelin hasn't realized it yet, but Rowan smells like home, like Terrasen. He smells like pine and snow. This whole moment is beautiful. Rowan is the first member of her court, her chosen family, and a piece of home she's fighting to reclaim.
Bro, I can't believe we're at the end of this book. Aelin boards the ship. In his hawk form, Rowan follows the ship, then brushes her cheek and turns around. Aelin traces the scar on her palm, remembering her oath to Nehemia and the mission ahead. She's ready, like we said. She will get the word keys, free magic, destroy the king, and save her people, no matter what it takes. The final lines of Heir of Fire are, she lifted her face to the stars. She was Aelin Ashriver Galathinius, heir of two mighty bloodlines, protector of a once glorious people, and queen of Terrasen. She was Aelin Ashriver Galathinius, and she would not be afraid. It's everything. How do you top that? How do you top this series? Please, honestly, listeners, if you have something that you think tops this, let us know. I'm like, how do you top this? This is why we can't stop talking about it. How do you top this?
You simply cannot. You simply cannot. And next, our favorite moments. These are moments in the set of chapters that we really just love.
Dude, I had a hard time, but I do think, and because I love Chaol, my first favorite moment is when Chaol throws his old sword into the Avery River. I think it's such a powerful, symbolic scene, and I'm just generally really glad that it was included because we've watched Chaol evolve so much over the course of the series, but these final chapters in Heir of Fire really show how deeply his identity has been shaken by Selena, by Dorian, and by everything that they've been through since she came into their lives. Tossing that sword isn't just about letting go of a weapon. It's about letting go of who he used to be. It's the moment that he stops clinging to the man who blindly served the crown and begins choosing who he wants to become. And we just had this moment, but my second favorite moment is when Aelin says that she's going to rattle the stars. It's a beautiful callback to what Elena tells her in Throne of Glass, and again, a reminder of how far she's come. She's no longer Selena hiding behind the masks and the name. She's Aelin, and she's ready to rise. She's reclaiming her power, her throne, and her purpose. Our girl is going to rattle the stars. And I cannot wait to watch her do it.
I have two favorite moments from this set of chapters. My first one is with Adian. Quote, he did not mind dying, though he still wished he'd gotten a chance to see her just once. I think that even though Adian does some pretty fucked up things in this series, the one thing that he's consistent throughout this whole entire series is that he is going to be loyal to Aelin. And I think that this is just one of those moments here where he is just like, I just wish I got to see her. And I don't know, I just really love him in this set of chapters. My next favorite moment is, quote, she lifted her face to the stars. She was Aelin Ashford Galathinius, heir of two mighty bloodlines, protector of a once glorious people, and the queen of Terrasen. She was Aelin Ashford Galathinius, and she would not be afraid. The reason why this is one of my favorite moments is because it's for two reasons. One, this is a callback to Sam, because Sam is the one that told her about, I'm Sam Cortland and I will not be afraid. And we see this time and time again throughout the series, and it helps, give her some motivation, And this is the first time that she has admitted that she is the queen of Terrasen. And this is the shift that she goes to from Selena to Aelin. And I remember, reading Queen of Shadows, and, when you first see, Aelin, da-da-da, whatever, kicking my feet and screaming. Yeah, so that's why it's my favorite. And next up, our final thoughts.
Where to even start with my final thoughts? I think I've said this 10,000 times in our deep dive episodes, but Heir of Fire is my comfort book in the series. I listen to it all the time, and being able to reread it through the lens of this podcast has been such a good experience. I love the healing journey that Selena has to go through to become Aelin, and I love that it's not always linear. It's messy and painful, and I just feel like that is so, so real in terms of healing. I love meeting Manon and the 13 and seeing how the seeds of doubt and rebellion are already starting to pop up for all of them. Also, Aiden's reaction to finding out Aelin is alive nearly took me out. It really did something to me. I also really appreciated Sorsha so much more on this reread, and I hate that her story is often seen as a random side plot. Dorian loved her so much, and it is very clear on this reread. And obviously, you guys know that I love Cale's entire journey to unpacking his good soldier identity. I think this reread highlights the similarities between Cale and Manon's characters too. When we meet Manon, she's very similar to how Cale was when we met him in Throne of Glass. And because I have to, Heir of Fire also really feels like the start to the Maasverse connections, in my opinion. It was published in September 2014, and then ACOTAR was published in May of 2015. And I think you can really see the seeds of how SJM began planning these interconnected worlds, even in this book. And Brooke and I have had a time planning this Maasverse episode, so...
Also, let me just piggyback off what Cami says. If there's one thing that I am obsessed with, it is the publication order of these books. I am obsessed with it. When we initially started talking about doing a podcast, I was we must do them in publication order, because I'm telling you, I think it really is important. And at one point in my life, when I get the time, I would love to read them in publication order, because I think that there will be so many things that you would catch. Just like when you read Assassin's Blade before you read Heir of Fire, it doesn't have the same effect if you were to read it after too long. I think that it's the same thing for the Maasverse. But anyways, my final thoughts from this book. The first time I read this book, it took me a really long time to get into this, because this was also the first ever fantasy series that I've read, fully read without listening to an audiobook. And this book was the biggest one that I had read at this point in time. And I was like, what is happening? There's so many new not chapters. There's so many new characters. There's so many new places. What the fuck is going on here? And I was really overwhelmed, but I feel like reading it back now, this book is so central to the entire story as a whole. And I think that I loved Manon in the first reread, but as I'm reading it again now, I just love her character so much more, and I have so much more appreciation for her now, and her character arc. But I very much enjoy this book, and I don't think you realize how emotional it is until you know the ending of the whole book. Obviously you're feeling the emotions at the moment, but you don't necessarily feel the emotions as hard as if you know what happens in the end of Kingdom of Ash. But yeah, I don't know. I loved this book. And when I first read this book, I rated it a 5-star on Goodreads, and I would rate it a 5-star again.
OMG, I did not say my rating, and I need to look it up. Oh my gosh. Pause. Yeah, I gave it 5 stars when I first read it, and I will give it 5 stars again. Honestly, 6.
Same girl. But anyways, that wraps up our deep dives for chapters 63 through 68 for Heir of Fire. We hope you enjoyed our analysis and theories. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, where our handle is @BookishRoundsPod.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on these chapters, so drop us a comment or send us a message. Also, leave us a rating if you like what you heard. It really helps us out.
Join us next week for our Heir of Fire Maasverse episode, which definitely stay tuned for that fucking episode. But until then, keep reading, Assassins.
Bye!